Tonight on Eyewitness News Nightwatch, an arrest in a 4-alarm fire that destroyed a New Orleans school.
Also tonight, President Reagan pushes his tax reform package before the American public. We'll have a late report. And how the Audubon Zoo became one of New Orleans' greatest success stories. A special report.
These and other late-breaking stories next.
Insurance companies have developed quite a talent for explaining their skyrocketing health plan rates. At Humana, we never have to resort to fancy footwork. We offer a group health plan called HumanaCare Plus. It's a unique group plan from a hospital company. Because we can control costs, both you and your company can save a great deal of money, all without the song and dance. HumanaCare Plus, the health care plans that save you more than money.
Suits of distinction at incredible savings at Maison Blanche. A selected group of classic suits by such famous makers as Calvin Klein, Daniel Hector, Society Brand, the St. Charles Collection, and Austin Reed were up to $495, now as low as $135. Suits in several fine fabrics, perfect for any occasion at savings you can't afford to miss. The best Father's Day values from Maison Blanche, where you'll always have friendly service from friendly salespeople.
He's the guy who always knows your name. He makes you feel at home.
It's May and Americans are celebrating National Tavern Month. So raise your Miller to the one who poured it.
Miller's made the American way. Born and brewed in the USA. Just as proud as the people who are drinking it today.
Miller Beer. Purity you can see, quality you can taste.
Miller's made the American way.
Louise, and Louise Mandrell for Miss Goldie brand chicken.
Miss Goldie chicken is pick-me-up, the best you'll ever taste. It's lit you need the spice of life would smile upon your face. Put Miss Goldie chicken in your basket. Now you're talking tenderness. Miss Goldie, for freshness you can taste and tender goodness you can count on. Miss Goldie chicken from the people with the tender touch.
Channel 4, WWL-TV, New Orleans. Garland, Robinette, Angela Hill, Jim Henderson, and meteorologist Dave Barnes with Channel 4's Eyewitness News Nightwatch.
Good evening, everyone. An arrest tonight in connection with that fire at the Edgar P. Harney Elementary School.
Police took a young student into custody after talking with students and the school's custodian. John Snell is here with details. John?
Garland, investigators described the arrested youngster as a cream of the crop student. He was not identified because he is only 11 years old. Police say the youth was with 2 or 3 others in the building's book room when he poured duplicating fluid over a gas space heater. The fluid came into contact with the heater's pilot light and the fire took off. Firemen described it as one of the hottest blazes they've encountered in years. 60 children inside the Edgar P. Harney Elementary School building when it caught fire. More than 400 others in nearby structures. It was a matter of minutes before the building was engulfed.
I never seen nothing like it in my life. It was terrible.
The heat was intense.
So immediately I jumped up and I said, children, move. This is the real thing.
She got lucky. She can't find.
Parents running from the neighborhood tried to account for their children.
Don't cry.
Miraculously, all were safe with only a few minor injuries.
Some fire when I went over there. I had touched something and it had popped on me.
The building itself a total loss.
The most significant factor to this fire was the head start the fire had on us when we arrived on the scene.
The other school buildings were saved, but the flames quickly spread to utility poles and a nearby car, then an apartment building across the street.
All I see was a big flame coming out the school over there, you know, and it wasn't no other thing for me to do but to go back inside and then jump out the back window, you see, because I couldn't come out this way because they had a lot of flames, you know.
Several people are homeless. Police say the young student accused of setting the fire remains in custody. School officials say classes will resume in the morning. Students will be moved to adjacent buildings, still left intact. Angela?
Well, John, not far from the scene of that fire, a New Orleans police officer was shot in an unrelated incident. Patrolman Wayne Rumer and his partner were checking out a report of shots being fired in the area of Washington and Willow Streets. When they stopped a car to investigate, a man in the vehicle jumped out and opened fire. Rumer was shot in the leg. Tonight, he underwent 5.5 hours of surgery to repair an artery in his leg. He is in intensive care unit at Tulane Medical Center. 30-year-old Gregory Kelson was arrested and charged with trying to kill Rumer. Police are looking for another suspect. 2 children were seriously injured tonight in an accident on Morrison Road at the I-10 service road. Police say a car driven by Thomas Doucette was hit by another car driven by Marlene Ottaway as Doucette was trying to turn onto Morrison Road. Doucette's children, Thomas Jr., age 3, and Letitia, 22 months old, are being treated for head injuries at Methodist Hospital. They're listed in fair condition.
President Reagan tonight gave details on what could be the most important change affecting taxpayers in years. Mr. Reagan wants to overhaul the nation's complicated income tax structure, a system whose current structure the president says is un-American. We have details of the president's address in this late report from CBS News.
President Reagan tonight told a national television audience that he wants to drastically change the American tax code so earnings are not treated as the personal property of the Internal Revenue Service. And he said thousands of letters from people around the country tell him tax reform's time has come.
I know how hungry you are for change. Make no mistake, we, the sons and daughters of those first brave souls who came to this land to give birth to a new life in liberty, we can change America. We can change America forever. So let's get started. Let's change the tax code to make it fairer and change tax rates so they're lower.
Mr. Reagan proposed 3 tax brackets, 15%, 25%, and 35%, to replace the current 14 with a top rate of 50%. He is proposing an increase in the personal exemption to $2,000 and retaining home mortgage deductions. The president's plan would cut the average taxpayer's bill by 7%, while raising corporate taxes by 9% overall. Mr. Reagan used populist personal terms to rally support for his proposal.
This, then, is our plan, America's tax plan. A revolutionary first for fairness in our future. A long overdue commitment to help working Americans and their families. And a challenge to our entire nation to excel. A challenge to give the USA the lowest overall marginal rates of taxation of any major industrial democracy.
Mr. Reagan said his opponents will come up with hundreds of reasons why his tax reform plan won't work. But he urged his audience not to let the moment slip away, with their dream of tax relief moving closer to reality. Gary Schuster, CBS News, the White House.
The Democratic chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee commended President Reagan's commitment to tax reform. However, the chairman, Illinois Representative Dan Rotzenkowski, called the president's plan a starting point in a long debate. CBS News will carry opposing views to the Reagan tax plan at 9:30 Friday night on Channel 4.
Well, what a lot of people are wondering is who would gain and who would lose under the proposed changes in taxes, and that may depend on who you listen to. For the average middle-income family of 4 making $25,000 a year, the savings could be more than $460, while a family whose income is $100,000 may pay more than $1,000 extra in federal taxes. Those figures come from an accounting firm in New York, which CBS News used.
They did. But a congressional study claims the average American family will end up paying more in federal taxes, an average of $927 more a year due to a loss of some deductions. For Louisiana taxpayers, the study estimates the elimination of deductions, such as local taxes, will cost the average family $389 a year. In Mississippi, the study claims taxpayers would pay an extra $559 a year under the Reagan tax reform. Industry and business would shoulder much of the tax burden, even though their tax rates would also drop. But certain lucrative deductions would be eliminated. And a business lobbyist warns that could be dangerous.
Right now, the economy is not all that strong. Is that a time to increase business taxes? It could be dangerous. It could tip us into recession.
Overall, corporations would end up paying 9% more in taxes, while individual taxpayers would see a 7% cut, that according to the White House.
A nationwide poll tonight shows the majority of Americans want laws requiring drivers to wear seatbelts. The poll by the nonprofit Insurance Institute found 57% of those surveyed in favor of mandatory seatbelt laws. That poll comes as a House committee in Baton Rouge revived a bill requiring seatbelts be worn by all front seat riders in passenger cars. The committee earlier this month rejected the bill, but changed its mind with the help of New Orleans Representative Garey Forster.
I think we changed the focus on the issue, and we changed it from it being an auto manufacturer's bill to a people bill, and that is the testimony today was that by mandatory seatbelts for front seat passengers in passenger cars, you save lives, you save the taxpayers $24 million a year because of the injuries and the deaths and the insurance costs and so forth.
The rest of the legislature must still act on the measure. In other action, a Senate committee deferred action on a bill to establish a state-run lottery. But that same committee approved gambling on ships that make a one-day cruise, a so-called cruise to nowhere. And the Senate passed a 3-bill education package that would end tenure for principals, create a method to assess teachers, and set up pilot programs for teacher pay incentives. That package now goes to the House.
Next on Eyewitness News Nightwatch, the problems faced by victims of the Bangladesh cyclone.
And the success story behind the Audubon Zoo, a special report.
Full-size GMC pickups from Superior. They're rugged, dependable, and surprisingly affordable. GMC pickups, a superior value.
The 10:35 MASH. Each and every night on Channel 4.
It's my considered opinion that no one's going to believe that you're pregnant.
The most popular comedy in the history of television.
It's the most beautiful thing I have ever heard in my life.
The 10:35 MASH on Channel 4. Catch it.
Martin, that was fantastic.
There's a good feeling in general.
Rick. Hey. Congratulations.
Thanks. So, this is how a new partner lives.
It's nice, huh?
Should have known you'd get a general home. Well, we're proud of it.
You made your mark, now celebrate. You know you're feeling like a winner.
That was a great party.
The party's just beginning.
General Homes gives you a special place to share the good times.
Move in the general direction.
Send your name and phone number to WLTS-FM,
and you may be the lucky winner of this fun party barge.
From Light Rock 105, WLTS.
There is still no exact figure on the number of people killed in last weekend's hurricane in Bangladesh. The government says 1,400 people perished in that disaster, but unofficial reports put the total as high as 40,000 people in the Bangladesh area. Thousands more could starve if they don't get fresh drinking water and food. Much of the area's rich farmland is now little more than muddy patches.
Today in Beirut, 3 Arab gunmen kidnapped one of the few remaining American officials there. 54-year-old David Jacobson of California was grabbed near his Beirut home. Jacobson is the administrator of Beirut's American University Hospital. Meantime, at least 20 people, many of them children, were killed in fighting in Beirut's suburbs. Convicted papal assailant Mamat Ali Aja went even further in court today than he did yesterday.
Io sono Gesù Cristo reincarnato.
That's right, Aja repeated his claim to be Jesus Christ and likened his 1981 attack on the Pope to a biblical revelation. Aja is supposed to be testifying about an alleged international plot to kill the pontiff.
Tomorrow, Coast Guard investigators could begin questioning survivors of last week's barge accident near Morgan City. The Coast Guard is holding hearings trying to find out why the oil drilling barge capsized, killing 11 men. At the same time, the victims' families are suing the company that operated the barge.
The hearing so far, the evidence is clear that the drilling superintendent and the other people in charge and Indian towing company, the owners of the tugboats themselves, had the primary responsibility, if not the total responsibility, for this accident.
The families are suing 3 companies, Temple Drilling, Indian Marine, and Shell Oil, for a total of $47 million.
For the last month, we have taken a hard look at the problems facing our community economically, educationally, governmentally, and recreationally.
However, there is a bright spot, a success story of how an embarrassing situation was reversed. and made into a citywide asset.
Tonight we look at that success, where it came from, how it got where it is today, and what can be learned from its development. In 1975, the New York Times called the Audubon Zoo an animal ghetto, the worst zoo in America. Those who managed the animals were the same people who cut grass, cleaned cages, and picked up leftover scraps from local restaurants to feed the animals. It was an embarrassment, a blight to New Orleans' image. But 10 years later, one walk through Audubon Zoo shows the metamorphosis of that ghetto to one of the finest urban zoos in this country. It didn't happen with a magic wand or a fairy godmother. It happened because people, quite simply, began to care.
We had people visiting our zoo, and they were families, people like you and I visiting, trying to show their family a good time, a recreational period. They would bring their friends from out of town, and they would come to our zoo, and they were embarrassed. It was an embarrassment to our community, and they felt it was almost an indictment against them. If we can't take better care of our animals, if we can't take these magnificent animals from the wild that are now ambassadors for the animal kingdom and put them in better facilities, then we should close down. And those same people that came to visit the zoo said either fix it up or close it up.
It was an ultimatum for the survival of the animals and for the zoo itself. Bear? Met by a private family funding a study to see what, if anything, could be done. That study became a guide to a plan, one you see today.
It was a visionary plan. It was one that thought not only of 2 months down the road, 1 year down the road, but it talked about 10 and 20, even 50 years down the road.
But plans are made of paper and dreams. Success for the zoo meant money and a tremendous commitment of energy. The energy came from the forerunners of the Friends of the Zoo. The initial money they felt had to come in the form of a tax millage. Kitty Duncan on the Audubon Commission at the time was among those who appealed to then-Mayor Moon Landrieu.
I remember going down to see him with a group of us from the board, and he said, you know, we have many other needs in New Orleans. And we said, yes, we know you do, and we know that ours is not the primary need. But this is a job you have appointed us to try to do, and so we would like your help in asking the people of New Orleans to support it.
But it wasn't just the political support they needed. They had to convince a tax-wary public.
That wonderful group of nucleus of women who later were, and men, who later were the Friends of, the beginning of what's now the Friends of the Zoo, went out on the street and literally, out on Canal Street, handed out flyers, and some people gave us money for advertisements in the paper, and we tried to get all the publicity we could, and we were able to sell the public on the idea.
It worked. The tax passed. Professionals were brought in. Renovation began. Soon, corporate support, public rallying, and appreciation. From the West Bank.
We love it. The kids love it. You know, it's educational.
From Kenner.
I heard about, a couple of baby animals they had, and I wanted to bring the kids in to see them as well as myself.
From Shreveport.
We're moving here in June, so we want to go ahead and have it ready.
Today, the Friends of the Zoo numbers 33,000 families, or 110,000 people. Nearly 1 million people walk through these gates each year, the highest visitation per capita in the country. And that helps pay for 87% of the zoo's $6.5 million operating budget.
This is a boa constrictor. Her name is Mabel, and boas are from South America.
They come for the animals.
Hannah is a red-tailed hawk. There are over 90 different species of hawks worldwide.
For the fun. It is no longer an animal ghetto. It is no longer a city embarrassment. It is a success. The zoo proves that this area has the ability to turn major negative blemishes in our community into a source of pride, whether it be education or economic development or selling ourselves.
I think the key is to get people involved, to motivate them and make them part of what's taking place.
And that may be the key right there, but you just can't say it enough. There is such a feeling of pride and accomplishment for the zoo, and there's still a lot to be learned about their success story.
I've told Ron as a child one of the worst experiences I ever had, because I do love animals, was going to the New Orleans Zoo. It was an incredible embarrassment and almost a shock for a young child. Let's hope that the city can do what the zoo has, because that epitomizes everything that's right and good about this city. Coming up next, a victory for the city council in its battle with NOPSI.
Now that HHS has changed the reimbursement formulas to DRG to administer DRGs, affecting FICA and SSA, unless HHS intervenes, while HCFA indicates reimbursement notwithstanding the GNP.
Because Humana is a hospital company, we save you and your company money without insurance mumbo-jumbo.
There's just too many people getting SICK.
Humana Care Plus, the health care plans that save you more than money.
If you didn't care about the picture, you wouldn't take the shot. At least that's how Eckerd Drug sees it. That's why Eckerd gives you 2 photo guarantees on Ultralab 35 and System 2. Guarantee 1. If you aren't happy with any print, you don't have to pay for it. Guarantee 2. If your prints aren't back when promised, they're free. So if you cared enough to take the shot, take the film to Eckerd. One drugstore is better than the rest. Eckerd.
For 40 years, the Robert family has served our area's heating and cooling needs with experienced personnel and a large fleet of trucks for fast service. Robert Refrigeration recommends Amana with copper tubing because, unlike other brands, Amana builds only high-efficiency units to match rigid commercial standards. Robert's big Amana inventory, plus a fully stocked parts department, means quick response to your every need. So for expert central air service, remember the bear rowing the boat. That's Robert Refrigeration.
Remember when that teacher helped you through your first day in a new school? Hung your drawing on the bulletin board? Put a gold star on your first spelling test? Made you feel special? A lot has changed since you went to school, but one thing hasn't. School employees still care about your kids. And now we need your support and your involvement. More importantly, your children need it. For a free copy of our Citizen's Guide to the ABCs of Meaningful Reform, write to the professionals, the Louisiana Association of Educators.
City Council 2, NOPSI nothing. The council chalked up another court victory as the state appeals court ruled New Orleans Public Service must get council okay to sell stocks and bonds. The council has blocked NOPSI from selling roughly $100 million in securities. The company may appeal to the state Supreme Court or plead its case again before the council.
We're getting ready for the big Hockey Puck Award, huh?
Hockey Puck Award. Yeah, something like that.
And Stan Gretzky stepped in and won it for the Overton Oilers tonight?
Stanley Cup, Garland. Stanley Cup. The Edmonton Oilers could take a commanding 3-1 lead in defense of their Stanley Cup tonight as they entertain the Philadelphia Flyers in Game 4 of the finals. A wild first period saw a little bit of everything, including 5 goals. Berger turns on the light for Philly to put them up 2-1. They could have made it 3-1 on one of hockey's rarities, a penalty shot. But Ron Sutter doesn't make much of a move as he swoops down on Grant Fuhr, and the Oiler goalie turns him aside. But a bit later, they got that goal anyway on the 2-on-1 breakaway. Murray Craven tucks it in the side of the net to make it 3-1 Flyers. But the Oilers answered that late in the period as Charlie Huddy from the point sends a slap shot through a maze of players and behind Pelle Lindbergh to cut the Flyer lead to 3-2 after 20 minutes. In the second and third period, the Oilers have pulled ahead, and they now lead in the third period by a score of 5-3. The Cubs, who have found that no lead is big enough at Wrigley Field, had the same feeling at Riverfront Stadium tonight. The Cubs had a 6-0 lead in the bottom of the fourth when the Reds began a comeback with Alan Nicely's RBI single, making it 6-1. A bit later, Tony Perez comes on to crack a drive to left that gets out for a 3-run homer, and it's 6-4 Cubs now. The inning continued, and Ron Oster collects a hit to left that bounces past Davey Lopes. Cesar Cedeno romps home, and the Cub lead, which was 6-0 entering the fourth, is 6-5 leaving the frame. Later, it was 10-5 Cubs, but even that wasn't enough. The Reds come back to take it in a wild one, 13-11. The Cardinals pounded out 19 hits and knocking off the Braves again, 9-3. After 9, the Pirates and Astros tied at 3, as are the Expos and Padres through 4. Over in the American League, Boston and Minnesota postponed by rain. Toronto defeated Chicago. Milwaukee edged Cleveland 3-2. And Texas knocked off Kansas City, ending their 6-game winning streak 6-1. If you just won $2.6 million for about 3 minutes work, you could afford to take a vacation too. Not only can Spend a Buck afford a vacation, he needs one, according to his owner and trainer. So the Kentucky Derby winner, who bypassed the Preakness to run in the Jersey Derby and win yesterday, will skip the Belmont Stakes next Saturday as well. Looks like his next start will be the Haskell Invitational at Monmouth on July 27th. In NBA coaching circles, you're hired to be fired, and usually to be hired again by somebody else. Tonight, there are 2 openings that didn't officially exist last night. One is in Chicago, where the Bulls showed Kevin Lockery the door. The other is in Philadelphia, where the 76ers' Billy Cunningham took a hike. Cunningham contended he left of his own volition to add a chapter outside basketball to his life. Basketball has been his life, and he left with mixed emotions.
Oh, I still love it, and you know, as I said, I don't want to get into, you know, the 2,000 things I have on the left-hand side of the column and on the right-hand side, but I just felt that it was time for Bill Cunningham and his family to move on, and that's as simple as I can make the statement. And I just loved what I was doing. I enjoyed everything about it. To a certain point, the travel, as you mentioned, and we go back many years in that regard, you know, it got old.
Will assistant Matt Gukas succeed
I
him?
feel strongly that you can only be good at a job if you want the job. And I want to hear from Matty that he wants the job.
I've been prepared along those lines. And I'm sure Harold and Pat and Jack McMahon and I will be talking about the upcoming draft in the very near future. And if Harold needs that proclamation from me, he'll get it.
Bing Crosby's old clam bake may become his old barbecue. It's moving to the southeast. Catherine Crosby today announced the charity golf tournament started by her late husband 44 years ago will move to North Carolina next June. It will not, however, be sanctioned by the PGA. In an attempt to fight commercialization of the Crosby name, the family pulled out of the annual Pro-Am in Pebble Beach when AT&T was announced as a co-sponsor. Now the Bing Crosby Pro-Am will continue, but far from its Carmel, California home. A week from Saturday, June 8th, the Popeyes Offshore Grand Prix hits Lake Pontchartrain for another year. That event annually brings thousands to the lakefront. Many come just to look at the bikinis, but some want to see the race too. And Mike Drury told our Larry Matson that'll be easier this year.
The morning of the race, we're going to have all the boats meet us. We're going to take them and run them on like a pace lap or a parade lap, so all the people, the spectators, can see the boats, and we have the race queen waving, you know, and all this stuff. And the difference is going to be the pace lap, the shortness of the course, and all the spectators now, we have a buoyed-off area where the spectators will have to remain southward of the course. A lot of people are going to ask, you know, they're going to be interested to find out where they're going to be able to go that day.
And we look forward to that a week from Saturday.
Should be interesting.
Well, summer is setting in for a long stay.
But will we see any temporary relief in the form of afternoon showers? We'll find out from Dave next.
This weekend, I'm seeing Rhonda. I got the Camaro. I'm seeing the folks, so I got a Chevette. My sister's in town this weekend with their kids.
You need a big car.
For just the right car, ask National for their low weekend rates from $19.95 a day for an economy car to $32.95 for a luxury car.
For my class reunion, the Cadillac.
Weekends it pays to get national attention.
The 10:35 MASH. Each and every night on Channel 4.
Me and the missus.
There's a special delivery from television's finest half hour. Oh, Frank. You're so above average. Where comedy is serious business. Each and every night at 10:35 on Channel 4.